Well, good morning. As we start off this morning with our cow-calf entries, I'm learning real quick for the slight numbers that we have in the limousine show today. The limousine people in or this is the open show, so in or around Kentucky, I'm learning are not afraid of work because cow-calf pairs are a little extra work at times, and we've got two of the only maybe 15 or 20 entries we've got here this morning. But the young lady's red cow here is a really nice, angular, smooth, good-built female. I like her udder. I like her feet. I appreciate that from a structure standpoint, just in terms of longevity. I like that one. The black cow here is just a growthier, more performance-oriented, just more power, I guess. Center body, natural thickness, and from a quality standpoint, she's probably a little more aesthetically pleasing from the profile, just in terms of the way she balances up and her look. Doing a good job raising that calf. It's a nice calf on her. The calf probably has the advantage too over this calf on the red cow, just in terms of look and presence out here. She gives up a little bit maybe to the ground just in terms of her feet. Maybe not quite as nice in that udder, but I'm going to go ahead and still use the black cow to win this class, and the red cow will be second out here.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for having me out here to judge your Hereford show this morning. It's always good to come back home and have the opportunity to sort through these cattle. The first thing that I always like to do whenever I start judging the show is thank the people for inviting me to come. There's thousands of people that could come out here, so I appreciate the opportunity to come out and for you to hopefully accept my opinion and let me give you my opinion on these good cattle. Heifer that we're going to start with, really nice pair. I think that whenever we look at this cow, I think she's the most complete, the best balanced heifer in the bunch. Love her rib shape, really bold and sprung in that rib cage. Really nice, blends in from her shoulder all the way back into her hip. Super level, holds herself together really well on the move, and got a really nice extended kind of a bull calf on the side. So I think she wins pretty easily. I think the next two get really close, and I think that it's a give and take, as it is with any cow-calf pair. Cow that we've got here, maybe a little bit loose in that udder structure, but she's a super long body cow, super stout made cow, and got an excellent bull calf on her side. So she's going to kind of slide into the second hole. Heifer that we're rounding the class out with, really extended up through her front end, really lean in her condition, and you appreciate that about her. Probably a little more ideal in her teat placement and her forudder attachment. But to me, not quite as good a calf from a quality standpoint. Maybe gets a little shallower, gives up a little bone structure.
Results from your limousine show: your champion cow-calf pair as well as your Kentucky champion goes to Jackson Kidd with entry number 5388 Otto Hayes ET. Your reserve Kentucky goes to Clarabelle Bishop of Cox Creek, Kentucky with 3G Cowgirl Cagney 236K. We're now showing spring heifer calves in the West Ring. Also results from the Hereford cow-calf division. Your champion Kentucky goes to Levi Womack of Pembroke, Kentucky. Your reserve goes to Jordan Hall of Houstonville, Kentucky. And third would be Zachary Imbruglio is also third Kentucky. We're also now showing spring heifer calves in the East Ring for the Hereford show.
Young lady brought us a March heifer here that's really striking on the profile. Love her extension, love the way that she comes out of her chest floor and ties in high in that neck. Big stout-legged kind of a heifer. Really cool on the profile. Really long and level in the top, level from hooks to pins. If we could change her any way, we might like to just blow her apart a little bit. Might like to see her just a little wide from pin to pin and stifle to stifle. But I think as this one lays on some fat, matures, I think that's going to come around. Super good-looking kind of a heifer that the young lady brought us.
Results from Class 2 Hereford Spring Heifer Calves. Your first place goes to Ray Ramsey of Greenfield, Indiana.
The young man here with the darker black heifer, I guess right in front of me with the white flank, is probably certainly has the size or the performance advantage out here, being an April, and the young lady's heifer behind her is a March. And I like the smoothness and the angularity of this female. She's really good in her lines, maybe gets a little deeper in her chest, but again, just the size, the extension, and she's got a nice look about her. Perhaps maybe doesn't balance up quite as well as this young calf, and she's given us a little, I'll cut her tail up here a little bit, but she's a little cleaner at the bottom side of her chest and the bottom side of her neck, and she has a real elegant cowy build, just in relation to her age relative to her contemporary out here. I think she's just maybe a little behind or a little small, just giving up enough performance and doesn't have enough of just a quality advantage over the young man's heifer. We're going to use the young man's heifer to win this class. The young ladies will be second.
Results from Class 4 Limousine Spring Heifer Calves. This class will also be your division champions. First and champion in that division, Kentucky, goes to Jackson Kidd. Reserve Kentucky in that division goes to Clarabelle Bishop.
As we get into this young lady's single entry out here is one that could certainly stand a little more competition. She brings a lot of quality, a lot of presence to the table. You talk about drawing a picture just from a balance standpoint. She's very good. She's straight in her lines. She's deep and uniform in that depth from forerib to flank. Really has a refined, maternal, elegant look about her front end. If I'm going to get on her, I'd maybe just change her a little bit as she goes behind, gets just ever so slightly, and some of them might be between her ears. She's fighting the young lady out here, just gets a little uncoordinated in her stride off her hind end, but really nice female.
Two really nice heifers on the top end of this Hereford class, and I think that these two are really contrasting in their style. The heifer that I'm going to use to win the class, a little bit longer bodied, a little bit more extended up through that front end, a little bit more elegant about that head and neck. Love the way that she ties out of the top of her shoulder into that neck. Love the way that her blades lay in and transition into that rib cage. Is she as deep centered as the heifer that we have in second? I don't think so. Maybe gives up a little bone too, but when you get behind her, you love the width and dimension that she has. Probably has a little bit more shape and outer turn to her quarter, maybe just a little bit more massive in terms of muscle to go along with that good luck. So I'll give up just a nickel of rib to get that look and that style and that soundness. Heifer that we've got in the second hole, man, I love her body. She's so soft middled, she's so deep centered, and you love that about her. Just really big ribbed, high volume kind of a heifer, one that just gets a little bit plainer up through the front end, gets a little bit more open in her blades, gets a little bit more open in her shoulder, but you love her stoutness, you love her body, you love all that thing about her, just not quite the elegance of the first heifer. Then the next heifer in line, she's a logical third. She's a big hip kind of a heifer that you love the muscle shape. You love how much stifle this heifer has in her. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, is just sheer muscle shape down in that stifle region. We love that about her. But when we set her into motion, she'll want to roll off in her pins. She'll want to just drop ever so slightly as she gets into motion, just wants to drop a little bit more than what I'd like to see. Maybe gets a little bit more round in those shoulders. Young man's heifer that we're rounding the class out with, I think this heifer has a ton of potential. You love the extended front end. You love the extended body. This one's just a little immature. She's just a little bit behind compared to the others in terms of her growth curve. She maybe wants to get just a little bit stiff when she gets into motion. So 4 really nice heifers out here in this Hereford class.
Another single entry out here, and a really nice female, very different than the one that we just saw, one that has just a very unique look from a cow standpoint to me, and I think one that brings a lot of future to the table in that regard is just her size, her center body, her natural thickness, her looseness of structure, and we put her in motion. I do respect this. I didn't even ask. I don't know what percentage she is of Lemmy, but I respect from a breed character standpoint. You don't have to do a double take trying to figure out how much is there, if there's some limousine there. She's elegant, maternal, and refined, but in terms of her head and neck, I can tell she's a Lemmy, and I like that heifer. There's a lot of quality there.
Results from Class 3 Hereford Junior Heifer Calves. First to Ray Ramsey of Greenfield, Indiana. Second to Ray Ramsey of Greenfield, Indiana. Third and first Kentucky to Kyle Bush of Cynthiana, Kentucky. And fourth and second Kentucky goes to Rylan Hines of Magnolia, Kentucky. We're now showing for Division I champion Hereford.
As we bring out our Division I class winners out here, I think these two heifers are awful similar in type and in kind. Both are the kind that I like. They're both good looking. They both got some structural integrity to them. Both have enough rib and enough body to keep them efficient out in the pasture, and they both have some muscle to them. I think that it gets really close between these two. I think that the little heifer down here to my right, love her style, love her profile, love just how uniform she is. I think that the bigger heifer's probably got a little bit more stoutness, probably a little bit further along in her growth curve than the young heifer is. I just can't get my eyes off of this young heifer. She'll be my division champion today. We'll come back with the older heifer for reserve.
So we get these two calves back out here for division. Again, I'll just echo the same comments. And from a division, we got two quality females that could certainly stand a little more competition. And they're very different. And you're going to get a lot of varying descriptions or opinions in terms of their redeeming qualities, or maybe some things we'd like to change. But the young lady's heifer here, as we mentioned in class, just, she just has that presence, that new age look. I say new age, that's a poor use of terminology, but she has it. She's very refined. She's straight line. She's got a very balanced look from the profile. But so does the heifer right behind her, a heifer that just comes to us in maybe a little cowier, more functional kind of package. A heifer that has probably more to her, just in terms of center body. And they both have a unique they're very angular, smooth, and refined. One just maybe a little more exotic in her build. One's a little more cowy in her build. I do like and appreciate just the structure of the older heifer out here, just a nickel more, just in terms of we put her in motion, she just glides, and she takes a longer, more comfortable stride, and she's just more relaxed doing so. She's just a little plainer up there through her front end, but I love the cowy parts and pieces of this one. We're going to use the older heifer in this class to be champion this division. The young lady's heifer will be reserved.
Results from the West Ring here with your limousine show. Your grand champion Division 1 goes to Wesley Hornback with entry number 7158 of Magnolia, Kentucky. And reserve also goes to Wesley Hornback, entry number 6746 of Magnolia, Kentucky. We're now showing Class 9 Senior Heifer calves. And to get caught up on things over here in the East Ring with your Hereford show, your Division 1 champion goes to entry number 4143 to Ray Ramsey of Greenfield, Indiana. And Division 1 reserve champion goes to entry number 4141, Ray Ramsey of Greenfield, Indiana. We're now showing Class 4 Senior Heifer calves over in the East Ring for your Hereford show.
Another really nice pair of heifers. The more moderate heifer here, and the young lady's right in front of me is a heifer that reads real cowy. I like that about her. Her advantage over the heifer behind her is probably as you view her from the front or from a three-quarter view. I think she's just a little more opened up, just in terms of skeletal width and natural thickness, but everything's still in check. I love the angle to her shoulder and knee to ground and the set to her hind leg, and that reads true when we put this heifer in motion as well. She actually comes together really because she's a little plainer fronted, but it's not unacceptable in my opinion. It actually looks better on the move than she does at the standstill. The heifer behind her is a bigger, growthier, longer, obviously more attractive, more extended about her front end. Maybe doesn't stand quite as true from knee to ground or quite as opened up. We change her in the angle to that shoulder and knee to ground. Doesn't go with just that effortless. Now this heifer's not unsound, but she doesn't go with just that effortless flow or stride that the heifer right in front of her. But I like the dimension, I like the structure of the young lady's heifer here in front of her. We're going to use the first one to win this class, and the young lady in the dark purple shirt will be second.
Results from Class 9 Limousine Senior Heifer calves. First goes to Kendall and Portwood, second to Siddeley Portwood of Versailles, Kentucky. We're now showing Class 16 late spring yearling females.
Well, really good class heifers, and don't really pair up real good. Young lady, you want to bring yours on? You'll be first. The heifer that I'm going to use to win this class, to me, is the most complete. She's the most extended up through her front end, super, super sound, and I think this is a perfect view of this heifer when she gets into motion. If you watch her back foot, it sets right where that her front foot leaves off. And when she stops, she appears that she could be just a little erect in that scapula and that shoulder, but when she set her in motion, man, she just flows. She's so good. She's so good in her top when she put her on the move, holds that tail down where that it needs to be super level. You get behind her, she's extremely wide from hooks to hooks and pin to pin, just like we like to see them. Really, really, really nice heifer. Super clean up through that chest floor. I think she wins pretty easily. Now, I think that it gets pretty close. I think that these next two heifers are extremely close, and they're different. They're extremely different. I went with the softer middle, bigger bellied, bolder sprung kind of a heifer that to me in old school terms would just have more internal capacity. Is she starting to get a little fat? Yeah, she is. But when we set her into motion, she moves out good enough and just super soft, super efficient looking, and still has a neat enough look. Would we like to change her front end up some? Yes, we'd like to see her extended, but she's got so much mass and so much body and so much foot size. I think that she logically falls into the second hole. The heifer that I had trouble with where to put at is these next two, and I think these two get close as well. I think that when we look at the two that was above them, I think that the logical place is the heifer that we've got in third. Probably the third deepest bodied. She's deep flanked, really well presented, and you have to admire that about her. People in the back did a nice job putting this one together. She's level in her hook. She's level in her pins. This one just concerns me when we set her into motion. She gets a little bit more restricted. She wants to get a little bit stiffer out of that hock, wants to get a little bit stiffer out of that shoulder, but yet she's still one that gives us a really, really, really nice look. Probably one of the better looking, more eye-appealing heifers that we have out here. Next heifer in line, love her body. This young lady had a little bit of trouble getting her set up. This heifer's just a little plain fronted. She's a little crestier in that neck. She's a little bit thicker up through that front end. She wants to get a little bit more open in her blades than what we'd like to see. You like the body, you like the mass. I think this one just gets a little bit heavy fronted for me today. The next heifer in line, I think this heifer, and I talked to my son a little bit about it. He's helping me out here in the ring. I think this heifer here has a world of potential, but I think potential is the word. Today's not her day. I think this one is just green, and so it gives her that appearance that she gets a little bit tighter in her flank. She gets a little bit more restricted in the center portion of her body. I think when that one's fed and when that one gets bred, I think that one's going to look like a totally different critter. The next heifer in line, to me, I think that she just gets a little bit shallower. She gets a little bit tighter in that heart. She gets a little bit more pinched in that flank and just doesn't give us that maternal look that we like to see in the ones above her. Nice heifer just gets a little bit plainer, really long-bodied, and we appreciate that about her. The next heifer in line, I think that these two heifers here are really similar in their type and in their kind. Really good-looking kind of cattle that's got a good look to them, sound enough, just give up some extra body and extra dimension to the ones above them.
I'm going to use the young lady's heifer here up front that's fighting her. Just, I guess since I was just visiting with the kids real quick, I learned she's awfully high percentage lemmy and doesn't necessarily read it. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. I like she's very smooth and angular, and she still has something to her, but more importantly, she's the combination heifer out here that's the most fault-free and just is the most effortless when we ask them to go, in just terms of her ability to take a longer, more comfortable stride and a more athletic build. The heifer here coming out next, I really appreciate just in terms of limousine breed character. You don't have to think too long like, well, that's a Lemmy. A little old school in terms of her feature, and then that's okay. Maybe a little plainer about her front end, but more importantly, she's a little bigger in her tail head, and most importantly, I would change her at the ground. And we visited about that a little bit, just in terms of her feet. And I'm not even sure, it's not her structure up high, but her feet are just hindering her ability to get around out here. But I love the dimension and the ease of keep of that female. A heifer that is very, very smooth and has a nice look here coming out next, but she too struggles a little bit when we put her in motion, gets a little higher in that loin, and she just doesn't have the depth or the softness of the heifer ahead of her.
Results from Class 4, Hereford Senior Heifer Calves. First in First Kentucky goes to entry 4033, Hallie Hughes of Knoblich, Kentucky. Second goes to Cottage Hill Farms, entry number 1501 from Petersburg, West Virginia. Third and Second Kentucky goes to entry 1542, Marley Granis of Flemingsburg, Kentucky. Fourth goes to Andrew Ray. Fifth to Hadley Campbell. Sixth to William Sexton, 7th to Sadie Joe Brown, and 8th to Sadie Joe Brown. We're now showing Class 5 Hereford Senior Heifer Calves, and just want to take a minute to thank the Kentucky Hereford Queen Brenna Perkins and Kentucky Hereford Princess Mackenzie Emerson for being out here this morning helping pass out our awards. If you could, give them a big round of applause for helping out this morning. Also, the results coming from the limousine show this morning. Class 16 late spring yearling females. First goes to Samantha Pico with entry 2365 of Ewing, Kentucky. Second to Jackson Kidd of Sandy Hook. And third to Clarabelle Bishop of Cox's Creek, Kentucky. We're now showing Class 17 early spring yearling females.
Over here on this side, there's maybe been a little bit of a shortage in numbers on the limousine side, but there certainly isn't in quality, and this heifer reflects that as well. This young lady's an excellent showman. She gets this thing parked, and it's just, whew, and she gives you just such a pleasing look, a very well-presented heifer. I like her size. I like her body. When you get behind her, she's got some natural thickness, so I'm going to get into her a little bit. There, I'd change her. I'd just like to make her, I'd like to refine her and give her a little more elegant look, if you will, just about her head and neck and the size, the length, the shape to it, but certainly not unacceptable. Another single entry. This heifer brings a lot of performance to the table and just a lot of heifer, a lot of substance. She's big and she's long. I like that. She's big-footed. She's stout-boned. She's got a lot to her, and when the young lady gets her parked, she's got a very pleasing silhouette from the profile. You can read the limousine in her from a breed character standpoint. She just mentioned, I think she's 40 or 50%. If I'm going to change this heifer, I'd maybe give her a little more angle to her shoulder, from the top of her shoulder, the point of her shoulder, and then just from knee to ground, and it reads through when we put her in motion ever so slightly. But that's a real nice female.
Results from your limousine show. Class 17 early spring yearling females. First goes to Michaela Massey of London, Kentucky. Class 18 junior yearling females goes to Samantha Pico of Ewing. We're now showing for your Division 4 champions, so if those class winners from classes 16, 17, and 18 would please enter the ring.
Another really good class on the top end, and I think this is probably one of the toughest decisions that I've had all day, and I think both of these are really good, and I think they're both really high-quality heifers. The heifer that I'm going to use to win today is just a little more striking. She's got a little bit better look. She's a little bit longer up through her front end. I think that what separates these two is in the way that they tie in out of that neck into their shoulder. I think that the heifer that we've got that we're going to win this class with is a little bit flatter in her shoulder. She rolls into that rib just a little bit smoother. Her transition's a little bit better from neck to shoulder to loin, all the way back. I think she just connects together a little bit better. Is she as much of her? No. She's not as wide pinned and that kind of stuff, but she's a little bit longer bodied. She's a little bit longer fronted, and when this young man gets her stuck like that, she gives you an unbelievable look from the profile. I would like to bring her up in her pins ever so slightly. I'd just like to see her just a little bit leveler from her hooks to her pins. Really good heifer. Heifer that we've got in the second hole is one that I love the body shape. I love the rib shape. She's just naturally bold sprung. She looks like a really easy doing kind of a heifer. When we get behind this one, she has as much muscle shape and dimension as anything out here. She's got a little bit more cover on her than some of the other heifers on either side of her, but tremendously wide-bodied, tremendously heavy muscled heifer. To me, she just gets a little bit rounder in that shoulder. She gets a little bit more open in her blades compared to the first place heifer, but that's getting really nitpicky on a really good heifer. The next heifer in line, if we could cut her off at her shoulders and send the rest of her through the ring, this heifer's in the top two. So deep-bodied, so extremely deep middle, so soft-made, and we love that about her. When we set her into motion, she's sound enough. She just gets too plain-fronted to run with the two above her, but from that first rib back, she is just ultra cowy. She's ultra soft-made. She's just really nice in that area, just not clean enough fronted and not feminine enough to run up and with the two above her. The next heifer in line, one that I had a little bit of trouble with just trying to find a hole for, she really didn't match. This is a heifer that is long-fronted. She is good-looking, but she just doesn't tie together real well. When she comes out of her shoulder, she wants to get a little bit weak. She doesn't extend out of her front end like we'd like to see her. She wants to get a little bit upright in that scapula and gets a little bit straight in that shoulder, but from a look standpoint and an eye appeal, we like her. The heifer that we're rounding the class out with, this is one that looks like she just needs to be bred. I think we get this one bred, we get her belly down, we get her softer looking. I think this one could run up in the top of the class. She just needs to be a little bit deeper, a little bit softer made, and a little bit more flexible on both ends.
As we get these heifers back out here division, I think it boils down to the last two classes out here, and it's close. They're very different in terms of type and kind, but yet somewhat similar. To me, it's not necessarily a stoutness or a little bit, but they both are good in terms of just having some natural thickness, some boldness of rib, some depth of rib. The heifer from the last class probably a little deeper, truly just deeper sided, and if we're going to talk stoutness, she's probably a little bigger footed, a little stouter boned. While we're there, I'll just go on. She's a little longer fronted. She's a little longer necked to longer faced, maybe a little more elegant or at least cowy about the build in terms of the size and the shape to her head and her neck. The heifer from the middle class is one that has such a pleasing look from the profile just in terms of balance, and she's straight in her lines, and again, she has natural thickness. She's really good on her feet and legs. Her advantage over the heifer behind her is the slight more angle to her shoulder and from knee to ground, and because of that, when we ask them to go, I think she's just a little more coordinated, and she's certainly more effortless in her stride off that front end. Now, the heifer from the third class is not unsound by any stretch, but if we're getting picky on a couple of good heifers, that's where I'd change the one out of the third class. So I'm going to go ahead and use the young lady from the middle class to win this division, and the heifer from the last class in this division will be reserved.
Results from Class 5, Hereford Senior Heifer Calves. First in First Kentucky goes to Levi Womack of Pembroke, Kentucky with entry 4877. Second in Second Kentucky goes to Michaela Massey of London, Kentucky, entry number 5583. Third goes to Annagale Sally from Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Fourth to Colin Hulsman. Fifth to Caitlin Keith. Over here in the limousine ring, results from Division 4, your champion goes to Michaela Massey of London, Kentucky with entry number 5576, and your reserve goes to Samantha Pico of Ewing, Kentucky with entry number 2363.
Another real nice female here, and just breeds with a ton of brood cow potential from a function and longevity standpoint. Her angles and her ability to move are real good. Maybe a little deeper in her chest, a little shorter faced, a little thicker about her neck, but it still reads very cowy to me. And to have that kind of dimension and that smoothness and angularity and keep the kind of running gears that she has, I just really respect this female.
Results from Class 21 and also your Division 5 champion goes to Ashlyn Pop from Brazils, Kentucky with entry number 5691. We're now showing for champion limousine female. So if those division winners would go ahead and make their way into the ring.
As we get these heifers back out here for to pick our champion heifer, for no more numbers than we have. Again, I just echo the comment from a quality standpoint. The heifers have been really good, and I think there's three and probably one coming back in here that are in the hunt in my opinion, and that's the heifer from the second division to be one of them. Is one that just reads with such a cowy but yet a pleasing, attractive look from the profile. And she certainly maybe reads a little more limousine, if you will, but that's the breed we're in. And I don't even remember what her percentage is, but just her head and her neck and her chest reads that way. But this has a heifer that still has a lot of dimension. She's very angular and smooth and refined. She's good centered, and everything just comes together when we put her in motion. The heifer here from the junior yearling division is one that's very eye appealing, very attractive. She's got a nice balanced look. She's sound. She's very clean in her lines. Got enough to her all around. Again, maybe just like to make her a little more elegant or refined, as we mentioned about that head and neck. But a super solid, complete female. And then you got a phenomenal cow prospect out of the senior yearling division who can maybe read a little plainer about her dewlap and her chest or even her head when she's there at the standstill. But much like the heifer from the second division, when you put this heifer in motion, everything just kind of comes together, and that little plainer front end all of a sudden becomes cowy and attractive. But she does not quite have the look or the balance of a couple out here. But those three kind of surfaced to me. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to sort through your females today, and we'll go select your champion or reserve.
Two really good heifers up here actually three really good heifers on the top end of this class. The heifer that I'm going to use to win the class, I think, is the biggest legged, the biggest footed, the stoutest made, the stoutest structured one, probably one of the stouter structured ones that we've had in here all day. To go along with that, extremely deep middled, extremely soft made, really nice sweep to that rib like we like to see, and compared to the third place heifer, holds herself together better in her top. This one concerns me in her shoulder. Through the point of that shoulder, she gets a little bit coarse, she gets a little bit more open, but to go with all that stoutness and power and all that stuff, sometimes you got to give that up. So she's going to win. I really like the heifer that we have here in second, and I think it's a lot closer than what you originally think. This heifer in second is so well put together, so smooth made. The way that she's flat shouldered and she ties in out of that shoulder, she just gets a little bit shorter neck, she gets a little bit rounder in that shoulder, she just gets a little bit more compacted up through that front end, and it just concerns me a little bit from that standpoint. She had as much raw power and density as the first place heifer. I think she'd win. The next heifer in line, love the body in this heifer. Love the capacity that she has, the carrying capacity that she has. Love the extension up through her front end. Just really elegant. What concerns me is the upper rib shape in this heifer. She just doesn't have quite enough upper rib shape to her to make her blend from that shoulder into that rib cage the way that she needs to be, and therefore she wants to drop in her top ever so slightly, just doesn't quite hold herself together. I think if she was a little bit more blown apart up high, then I think that she would hold herself together a little bit better. Big, high-performing kind of a heifer, and my son talked about this heifer quite a bit. This is a cowy kind of a heifer, one that you like from that standpoint. You like her in terms of her depth of body. You like the center body mass that she has. She just gets a little plain. She wants to roll off in her hip more than the others. She wants to get a little bit plainer fronted, just not quite the length and extension of the heifers above her. But from a meat and potatoes standpoint, I think this gentleman's got a nice cow. The heifer that we've got rounding the class out with is not a bad heifer by any means. She's got some look. She's got some eye appeal. Love the face. You love the look that she's got through her head. Really feminine about her. She just needs more time on feed and needs to be mature. So immature compared to the rest of the class.
As we get that reserve from our junior yearling division back in here again, as we mentioned out here earlier, I love the performance, the extension, and the size and the stoutness of this female. And she's just got a nice, cowy, practical look about her, but a pleasing look about her as well. Again, we'd change her ever so slightly in the angle up to her from shoulder to knee to ground, but I think this is a really good female, and she's kind of a logical place for me to land. She'll be your reserve here today.
Results from your limousine show your champion female goes to Michaela Massey of London, Kentucky with entry 5576 TSSL Main Larissa 3032 LET. And your reserve goes to Samantha Pico of Ewing, Kentucky with entry 2363 PRF R&K Laney. Let's give them a big congratulations. To get caught up in the Hereford show, your results from Class 5A Senior Heifer Calves. First and First Kentucky goes to Levi Womack of Pembroke, Kentucky with entry number 4881. Second and Second Kentucky goes to Ellen Todd of Mount Vernon, Kentucky with entry 7053. Third goes to Mara Lewis. Fourth to Zachary Hall. Fifth to Ben Smith. We are now showing for your Division II champion in the Hereford ring.
Well, I told somebody the other day whenever I was planning on coming back and doing this that I remembered the last time I had the opportunity to sort through the open show at the Hereford show, and there was some cattle there that went on and did some really good things, and I was hoping that I would see the same quality cattle, and I think that we've got it. I mean, these three class winners are as solid as there is anywhere in the country, and I'm sure that these heifers, as we look at them, will go on and do good things or have gone on and done good things in the past at junior nationals and stuff like that. Heifer to my far right out of that first class, just really dense made, big hip, big stifled kind of a heifer that when we put her in motion, she just strolls out and just so flexible off both ends and still has a really good look about her. She maybe just gets a little bit thick through the top portion of her neck, but it's not enough to bother me at all. She's so clean-chested, and just to have so much mass and power, and you really like that to go along with the look and the soundness that she has. Heifer out of that next class, we talked about how long-bodied she was and just how much heifer there was. When we look at her from a three-dimensional standpoint, she's so long-spined and so big-ribbed and maybe not quite as short-backed as the heifers on either side of her, so it makes her maybe look a little more tucked up in her rib cage. But I think if there was some way that we could just put a measurement on internal capacity and the three-dimensional internal shape that she has, I think this heifer would probably be one of the bigger ones. And then the heifer out of the last class, love this heifer from her shoulder back. So soft middle, so big-legged. I think of the heifers that we've had out here, probably the stoutest made, biggest footed one that we've had. She just gets a little bit coarse in that shoulder. So I think we've got three really, really, really high-quality heifers, highly presented heifers. I'm going to go out and pick your division champion and come back and pick your reserve.
Over here on the limousine side with the start of the bull show, we got a bull that for a November calf. It's got some grow and performance. I like that, and he looks like maybe he's in a awkward teenager phase because he's stout and he's got something to him, and he reads masculine about his head and neck, but maybe just a little rawer, a little skinnier right now. But I love the smoothness, the angularity, the build of that bull. I think he's got a bright future.
Results from the Division II of the Hereford show. Your champion goes to Hallie Hughes of Noblet, Kentucky with entry number 4033. And your Division II reserve champion goes to Levi Womack of Pembroke, Kentucky with entry number 4877. In our limousine ring, as we kick off our bull show, your class winner of Class 30 winter bull calves goes to Craig Pico of Ewing, Kentucky with entry number 2355. And he was also your Division II champion that'll come back for your selection of your Grand Champion bull.
Really a nice complete bull here, maybe a little moderate, but a calf that's got some bull that's got some natural thickness. I like that about him. I'd change him out of his hip, and I think somehow that hip correlated to his hind end. Would like to see him maybe go just ever so slightly better off his hind end, but a solid bull in this division.
Results from Class 42 Senior Yearling Bulls on the Limousine Show. First and division champion goes to Eli Thompson of Greensburg, Kentucky with entry number 6662. We're now showing for your champion bull in the limousine ring.
Back over here as we bring both bulls back out here again, the yearling bulls, as we just mentioned, as we put him in motion, I see it again. He gets a little wide behind. He's a little different in that hip and hind leg and gets a little wide and doesn't use that hawk just how we'd like, and I would change him in that area. But appreciate, obviously, the size and the grow and performance, which I guess could be significant as an age advantage out here. But the younger bull just is a very correct, very balanced, very eye-appealing bull. Again, we mentioned probably a little in that awkward teenager phase, maybe just keeps coming in terms of bloom, more time and feed, but that bull's got a lot of breeding value from a standpoint, in my opinion, in terms just from a structure and a look standpoint alone. We're going to use the young bull to be champion here today. The young man's will be reserved.
Results from the Limousine Bull Show. Your champion goes to Craig Pico of Ewing, Kentucky with entry 2355. NCPC Mafia Man, and your reserve goes to Eli Thompson of Greensburg, Kentucky, entry 6662, EGST Loverboy 967K. That concludes our limousine show this morning.
Pretty simple decision to make in this class. The biggest legged, the biggest muscled, the heaviest made, heaviest structured one's going to win this class. I like this heifer from kind of that mid-shoulder back. I think this one's pretty good. She's big ribbed, she's big hip, extremely big-footed and big-legged. Maybe wants to get maybe just a little bit more restricted on those hind legs, but she's not walking the best for the young man. She's wanting to fight him a little bit, so I'm going to give him a pass on that. She's just so big-legged and big-structured. She wins the class pretty easily. Next heifer in line is a little bit more feminine-made kind of a heifer, extremely long-fronted, extremely long-bodied, level-made kind of a heifer. Just gives up the mass and power of the first-place heifer. The heifer that we're rounding the class out with is she's a soft-made, easy-doing kind of a heifer. This heifer just gets a little bit more restricted on both ends. She wants to get a little bit short striding, a little bit harder on the ground than some of the other heifers above her. She just maybe just a little past in terms of her finish too, in terms of her condition. As a feed salesman, I'd like to have people like this feed mine because she's not afraid to turn a feed bucket loose. So nice job, young lady.
Results from Class 6 late summer yearling heifers in the Hereford Show. First Kentucky goes to Quentin Ray of Brooksville, Kentucky with entry number 2238. And second goes to Charles Druin, Eminence, Kentucky with entry 3389. As also second Kentucky. And third goes to Sadie Jo Brown of Hardinsburg, Kentucky. We're now showing Class 7 early summer yearling females.
I think here's two heifers that get really close. I'm going to use a young man heifer here. I think she's a longer pattern kind of a heifer. She's a longer body kind of a heifer. Neither one of these heifers are the best at the ground, so I think that we kind of give them a pass on that. I think this heifer's just a little bit smoother in her transitions. I think she's a little bit flatter in her shoulder. I think she's a little bit better and smoother made as we look at her from a quality standpoint from there. She rolls off her hip a little more than what I'd like to see. I'd like to bring those pins up, especially when she's on the standstill. But here's a heifer that just puts a lot of the good things together from a functional cow standpoint, so she's going to win the class. Heifer that we've got in the second probably ties in a little higher out of her neck, maybe just has a little bit more condition on her than the heifer above her, especially up through her front 1/3. She's starting to get a little bit more chest on her than what we'd like to see, maybe a little bit more crest in that neck and just a little bit more open in her shoulder. But here's a heifer that from a skeleton standpoint, you love her base width, you love the width and dimension that she has, just needs to be a little bit cleaner, maybe a little bit longer bodied compared to the first place heifer.
Results from Class 7 early summer yearling females. First in First Kentucky goes to Rylan Hines of Magnolia, Kentucky, and second to Colin Hulsman of Raleigh, Illinois. We're now showing for Division 3 champion. We need the class winner Quentin Ray from Class 6 and class winner from 7, Rylan Hines.
As we get into our division here, I think that there's some give and takes in these heifers, especially in our class winners. We got the big burly-legged one that won that first class that we talked about, just how super stout it was and how big-footed and just raw-made it was from that standpoint, and how much we like the muscle shape and dimension that it had to it. Maybe got a little bit plainer up through its front end. Got a long front end, just gets a little bit plainer about its head and neck. Then the heifer out of the last class, really long-bodied heifer, really smooth-made heifer, really high-quality heifer, the way that transitions well from the point of the nose all the way back, but wants to roll off in her hip a little bit. I think the one that's the hardest to make is the young man's heifer up here. It'll be my division champion.
Results from Division 3 in the Hereford show. Your champion goes to Quentin Ray of Brooksville, Kentucky with entry 2238, and your reserve goes to Charles Druin of Eminence, Kentucky with entry 3389. We are now showing Class 8 spring yearling females. Just a reminder for the Simmental show that's starting at 10:30 this morning, we will start with purebreds and then follow with the percentages.
I, if these first four were a judging class, it would be an unbelievable judging class because there's so many differences in structure and finish and 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 angle to shoulder. This would be such a cool class to sort these top four. Would be the heifer that's the soundest, the most complete, not the biggest bellied, not the most of anything, is the heifer that we're going to use to win the class. She's the freshest made. She's the neatest up through her front end. She blends into her shoulder better. But the thing that she beats all the rest of the class on is just sheer structural integrity. At the ground, she dominates these others in terms of flexibility, both in her shoulder, the way that her scapula lays back, and her hocks, the way that she flexes off both ends. She wins the class. Is she the deepest body? No, but she's probably the skinniest one in the class when we look at her from that standpoint, just ultra complete, ultra sound. The heifer that we've got in second, I really love her rib shape, her belly shape. I love the way that she's made from that standpoint. So much internal capacity. But when we get this heifer from this view right here, she's starting to put on a lot more chest. She's getting a little shorter fronted. She gets more upright in that shoulder. She doesn't want to extend that forearm when we put her into motion. She just gets a little more restricted on that front end than what I would like to see. But from a belly standpoint, from a softness standpoint, we've got to like that up there. The heifer that really catches your eye is the heifer that we have in third. When this heifer stopped, man, she looks dead on. She's so choke-necked and she's so ties in so high out of her neck and shoulder. You really like that about her. She's just not sound enough today. Front feet don't point in the same direction. She wants to get a little bit more upright in that shoulder. Super deep, super soft-made heifer, just not sound enough. This is a heifer here that I think I could have moved up a couple spots if she held her top together better on the move. When we get this heifer on the move, she wants to come up in that loin. She wants to peek in her top. She just gets a little too restricted in that front end. Young man's done a great job feeding her. She's a big-legged kind of a heifer that's soft middle. She's just not quite sound enough. The heifer that we're rounding the class out with is one that gets a little more tucked up in her flank and in her heart than the heifers above her. She's just a little more pinched in that forerib than what we would like to see. If she was a little bit more soft-made, a little bit bigger belly, then she would win the class.
Results from Class 8. First in First Kentucky goes to Ann Patton Schubert from Taylorsville, Kentucky with entry 1573. Second in Second Kentucky goes to Will Beckley of Irvine, Kentucky with entry 1901. Third goes to Kalen and JC from Continental, Ohio. Fourth goes to Jordan Hall. And fifth to Easton Fuqua. We're now showing Class 8.1. And then after this, we will show for the Division 4 champion.
two nice heifers up at the top end of this class. But to me, I think that there's an easy winner, and that's the heifer that we put in first. Young lady, if you just want to keep walking her, watch this heifer move. Watch the way that she holds her top together. Watch the way that she holds her hip together. And when she gets this heifer stopped, her head and neck get extended. She got a little bit more chest than what I'd like to see. Yes, she is so upright in that head and neck. She's so angled up through that shoulder, so good. She's high out of her neck. A really, really, really super soft-made, super sound kind of a heifer. Next heifer in line, she kind of run up against a really good one. This heifer's really nice. I like this heifer. She doesn't tie in quite as good out of that shoulder into her forerib. She doesn't have much expansion in her rib cage as the first place heifer does. She just wants to get a little bit more restricted on that back end and wants to bring her pins down a little more than what I'd like to see compared to the first place one. But that's getting awful picky on a really nice heifer that the young man does a nice job showing. The next two get kind of close. I think that body capacity and depth and softness kind of separates these two. The young lady's heifer that we've got in third kind of logically falls into that position. She is a deeper bodied, she's a deeper flank kind of a heifer on both sides, and so she just kind of logically falls into that hole. Then the next heifer in line, she is a long pattern, long hip kind of a heifer that's got some muscle, got some shape to her. She just gets more restricted in that center body cavity area, so she logically falls fourth. Then the next heifer that we're rounding the class out with, I kind of like this heifer in terms of her angularity, in terms of her femininity, the way that she's got a really nice look about her. Once again, she's just a little immature compared to the rest of them, just doesn't quite have that softness in body.
Results from Class 8.1 in the Hereford show. First in First Kentucky goes to Marley Granis of Flemingsburg, Kentucky with entry 1541. Second in Second Kentucky goes to Luke Keith of Campbellsville, Kentucky, entry 4673. Third goes to Savannah Kugel. Fourth to Kerry Kugel. And fifth to Ben Smith. We are now showing for Division 4 champion.
Although our numbers haven't been huge in this division, I think that we've got two really nice class winners. And the similarity between the two, even though they've got some differences, is their soundness and just how flexible they are off both ends and how good they are at the ground. And I think that kind of sorts these two up closer to the top. In my mind, heifer that we're going to use to win the first class was one that's just extremely long pattern, extremely long frontage, so fresh up through that front end. Probably of the older heifers that we've seen, probably one of the fresher, better fronted heifers that we've seen. Just really clean in that brisket and like that about her. But to go along with that, she gives up a little bit in terms of total depth of body, total center body mass that the heifer behind her has. Maybe not quite the ruggedness of bone, but man, when we put this one in motion, she is so flexible, she is so sound. We really like that about her. The heifer that out of the next class is kind of the combination heifer that we've got in here in terms of softness and condition and the way that she puts everything together and ties out of that neck, and she is so flexible to go along with that extras that she's got. She's got more ESTs than a lot of them out here in terms that she is the biggest bodied and the biggest hipped and one of the soundest ones out here. So we always look for the ESTs, and this heifer's got a lot of them. And when this young lady gets her stopped, the way that she comes up out of that head, neck, and shoulders is just so elegant, even though she's got a little bit of chest. Really, really, really like that about her. I'm going to go out and pick the one that I like the best today and then come back and pick the reserve.
Results from your Division 4, your champion and champion Kentucky goes to Marley Granis of Flemingsburg, Kentucky with entry 1541. And your reserve and also reserve Kentucky goes to Ann Patton Schubert of Taylorsville, Kentucky with entry number 1573. We're now showing Class 9 junior yearling females. Just a reminder to all the Hereford exhibitors, there will be a Hereford exhibitor meeting following the conclusion of this show 15 minutes afterwards, so don't forget about that after the show's over.
Really nice heifers out here. I'm going to use the young man in the plaid shirt here. Young man, you want to spin back this way? I'm going to use the young man's heifer in the plaid shirt. And when we first looked at this heifer coming in, she's a little plain fronted, and I'll admit that. She doesn't tie in quite as high out of her neck. But if you watch this heifer, as she moves, as she flexes off both ends. The back foot sits right in the pattern of her front foot. She's still good enough looking, and yet she's still soft. She's still one of the bigger hipped, bigger topped heifers in the class. She gets a little bit more compact. But when we talk about completeness and just quality, I think this one kind of sorts itself to the top in terms of body shape and dimension, in terms of softness, in terms of soundness. So she wins. If I could take the heifer that's in second, probably 45, 50 days ago, I think this heifer would be really, 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 really good. And she's still a really nice heifer. I think this heifer's just too far along in terms of her finish and in terms of her condition. You can look at her rib cage and tell that they've been trying to pull her back. She's just got too much chest floor for me today. I just like to clean her up in that chest floor. Love the angles, love the front end. Maybe gets a little short striding off of that back end, but still really long bodied, really long fronted. Heifer that we've got in the third hole. I think if this one was about another 30, 60 days further along bred, I think this one's pretty salty. I think this one is really, really good in her lines. She's really, really good in her neck. She's really, really good out of her shoulder. She's really, really good in her hip. She just gets a little bit harder in her middle, not quite as soft through the center portion of her body. Super sound, big-footed kind of a heifer. Just gets too shallow compared to the two up in front of her. Next heifer in line, young man does a great job showing. He's brought me some really good cattle today, and I appreciate that have all been really well presented and does an awesome job showing. This is one that's long-fronted. To me, she wants to get underneath herself a little more than what I'd like to see when we put her on the move. She gets a little bit more tucked up in that flank. Just like to see her drop down just a little bit more in her flank compared to the ones above her. The next heifer in line, my son and I were having a little bit of discussion about this heifer. Love her uniformity of depth from her forerib back to her flank. Super deep body. This one's just not sound enough through her front end. She gets a little straight. She gets a little bit more erect in that shoulder. Just like to see her float more out. The next heifer in line, I like this heifer from her mid-rib back. I think this one is as good as there is out here from her mid-rib back. I just like to change her shoulder. She wants to get a little bit more open in her blades. She wants to drop in her shoulder just a little bit. Once it doesn't come out of that shoulder quite the way that we'd like to see. Just like to see her better in her transitions. The next heifer in line, super long bodied, super long pattern heifer, just gets a little piecey. In her top, she wants to come up a little bit when we get her on the move. Just doesn't want to hold herself together. Really, really good on her back legs as far as being soft and supple. Just like to see her just hold herself together a little bit better. The next heifer in line, I think this one just gets a little short-fronted for me today. Gets too upright in that shoulder. Wants to just get a little bit straighter on both ends than what I'd like to see. Just like to see that one a little bit softer in her pasterns and a little bit better in her shoulder. Next heifer in line, super soft-made, super just easy doing kind of a heifer. One that's just a little bit past her prime in terms of her finish. Just like to see her drop down in that flank just a little bit more.
Results from Class 9 junior yearling females in the Hereford Show, and these also will be your Division 5 champions. First and First Kentucky, as well as Division champion, goes to Jordan Hall of Houstonville, Kentucky, with entry 2731. Second in that class, and also your Reserve Division and Reserve Kentucky. Correction there, excuse me. Your champion goes to Bo Todd with entry 7017, and then your reserve goes to Quentin Ray. This is also the 30-minute call for the start of the Simmental show. We will be starting with the purebreds, followed by percentages, and they will be showing in the west ring this morning when you enter Broadbend.
Really good heifer to start this class out with. And I think if you missed this one in this class, I think that you missed a really good one. And I think right here is the look that this heifer gives you that just makes her so unique in terms of her mid-rib, the way that her body's shaped, the way that she's got the swoop to the middle of her rib that a lot of people talk about now. She's bold, sprung. She's so sound when we get her in motion, and yet she still has a good look about her. Does she have a little bit of chest floor? Yes. But I'll take it whenever one ties in out of their neck that high and is that sound and is that angled in her shoulder and sets her hock down the way that it needs to be. She's starting to get a little further long bred, so she's starting to drop in that top just ever so slightly occasionally, but I'm okay with that when you got one that's that sound and that good looking. And I think that the heifer that we've got in the second hole fits the mold really nicely of our first place heifer. Really long-bodied heifer, but just doesn't quite hold herself together quite as well on the move, and I think that's kind of what separates them. This heifer's got that same look. She ties in high out of that neck. She's good out of that chest floor, probably better out of the chest floor than the heifer that we started the class out with. She just doesn't quite hold herself together, not quite as smooth out of her top as the first place heifer. Heifer that we've got in third, I really like this heifer in terms of her in terms of her width and dimension that she has. The heifer that is nice made. She's further along in calf than a lot of the others out here. To me, this one just gets a little bit plainer fronted. She gets a little bit more jammed up in that neck than what I'd like to see. Maybe not quite as sound as some of the other ones that this young lady's had out here. The next heifer in line, a heifer that is extremely long-bodied, extremely long hip, probably one of the longer hipped heifers that we've had out here. She just gets down in that chest a little more than what I'd like to see. One to carry a little bit more weight in that front 1/3 just doesn't balance up as quite as well as some of the others. The next heifer that the young man's one that appears to be super easy fleshing, easy doing. She's bred like she should be. This one just needs to be a little bit tighter up through that front end. I think that this one, 60 days ago would be ideal. She's just a little too far along. Then we're going to round the class out with one that I just think is not quite as far along in her maturity pattern, not quite as long in calf as some of the others out here. You can't see that development, not quite as deep as some of the others out here.
Results from Class 10 senior yearling females. First, and as well as your division champion and Kentucky first, Levi Womack of Pembroke, Kentucky, 48 with entry 48.75. Reserve in that division and second in class goes to Will Beckley of Irvine, Kentucky with entry 1900. Third goes to Marley Granis. Fourth to Hunter Barnes. Fifth to Jordan Hall. And sixth to Luke Keith. We are now showing for champion Hereford female in the East Ring.
Realize we still have the bull show to go, but man, what a lineup of heifers. And let's give them all a big round of applause before we say anything more, because I think there is some super, super, super sound cattle out here that got a good look about them and still got enough meat and muscle and product and still have enough longevity in terms of their freshness and eye appeal to go on down the road and make good cows. And I think in my mind that's what we're after. And we're not going to go through and talk them all. I know that a lot of people these days say, they don't have to pair up, just pick the good ones. Well, I like for my cattle to pair up, and I think all these pair up good. They're all sound, they're all good looking, they've all got some moderation to them in terms of size and scale, and they've still got some product to them. When you get behind them, you can see some width and dimension, and I really, really, really like that. So I think from our calf all the way up to our senior yearling, I think that there's some really good cattle out here. I'm going to go out and pick the one that I like the best today, and then come back and reevaluate for the reserve.
And your champion, Hereford female, goes to Levi Womack of Pembroke, Kentucky, with entry 4875. Womack Redneck Lady 2307. Your reserve goes to Ray Ramsey of Greenfield, Indiana, with entry 4143. LAM Ramsey Ruby's Doobie 405.
Really good way to start our Hereford Bull Show off. Big, stout January calf, heavy muscle kind of a calf that's would have a lot of commercial potential whenever you look at him in terms of the muscle shape and dimension that he has. Really wide from stifle to stifle, big forearm on him, nice made calf.
Results from Class 12 in the Hereford Bull Show. First in First Kentucky goes to Zachary Imbruglio of Leachfield, Kentucky.
Single entry as well in this class. Here's a big muscle kind of a calf. You look down his top. He's huge topped. He's really wide whenever you get on top of him. Big back kind of a calf that's got a lot of shape and outer turn to that quarter like we like to see. Extremely flexible off both ends. Extremely soft in his hocks and in his pasterns. Maybe like to see him just hold himself together a little bit better than his top and in his pins when we set him in motion, but a calf that you really appreciate just the sheer muscle width and dimension that he does have.
Results from Class 11 in the Hereford Show. First goes to JC Cattle Company, and now we're showing for Division Champion. Attention in the barn, the Simmental show has started, so if those first few entries in the heifer shows could go ahead and make their way to the makeup ring so we can keep the show running this morning. And just a reminder, we will start with purebreds followed by the percentages.
Well, as we start the purebred Simmental show over here in the cow-calf portion, we've got a single entry in this division. We've got a really good pair out here that the young exhibitors have brought for us today. I really like this cow. She's really like in terms of her freshness of design. And you study this one, she's really good at the ground, big-footed, really good angles in terms of her knee set, her hock set. Really long and extended, clean-fronted, long spine. Got some added muscle to her, and it's got a nice udder to her coming along. I'm really impressed. She's raising a big style February heifer calf that has got a lot of body and shape and dimension of this one. Just an awesome pair to win this particular drive. Let's congratulate these exhibitors.
Over on the Hereford side, I think that pretty simple class to sort. I think that the high-performing, bigger-made, bigger-structured, stouter-made calf that's further along in his maturity pattern to win this class. He's a bigger rib, bigger muscle kind of a calf, so he kind of sorts his way to the top. Nothing against the young man's calf, one that's ultra-cool fronted and really neat up through that neck. Probably a little bit better neck than the first place calf is. Just gives up the size and performance to place any higher.
Attention in the cattle barn. We're moving into the purebred Simmental show, and we need Grayson Ruber and Destiny Adams to the makeup ring, please. And with the rest of those purebred heifer exhibitors, go ahead and make their way up here as well. Results from the Hereford show. Your Class 13 senior bull calves. First Kentucky goes to Mara Lewis of Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Second Kentucky goes to Nate Bramer of Taylorsville. We're now showing Class 14. And on the Simmental side, congratulations to your champion cow-calf pair as well as your Kentucky champion Tyler Lundy of Springfield, Kentucky with entry 45-16. We're now showing Class 5 junior heifer calves in the Simmental show. Again, attention in the barn, all purebred Simmental exhibitors. We have started with the Simmental show, so if you could please be making your way to the broad bench to go ahead and start with the rest of the show.
Well, my kids get on me a lot for not having a poker face, so I'll just go ahead and say it. I think this guy right here is really, really good. I think he is so complete. He's so sound. He's big-hipped. He's got the right muscle shape pattern. Puts it together in a kind of a modern package where that he's really neat up through his front end. Not crazy chested or anything like that, but super sound, big muscled. Really nice sheath, just really good kind of a calf. Calf in the second hole probably has a little bit better when we look at him from that standpoint, he's a little bit more choke fronted, a little bit longer fronted. He just gives up so much mass and volume and just sheer muscle to get around the calf in front. But this is a nice calf in his own right. Might like to just shorten up that, but really a nice calf.
Results from Class 14. First goes to Stephen Green of Hodgenville, Kentucky with entry 7068. And second to Cottage Hill Farm of Petersburg, West Virginia with entry 1503. We're now showing for Division III champion in the Hereford Bull Show.
When we get these guys out here for a division champion, I think we like both these guys. The one to my far right is a really attractive, kind of a growthy made kind of a calf. Then we've got the one that was just out of our last class. It's just so complete and so stout and just so sound in his movement. I'm going to use the bigger calf as my division champion, and then we'll come back with the reserve out of that class for my reserve division champion.
Results from Division III in the Hereford Show. Champion and champion Kentucky goes to Stephen Green of Hodgenville, Kentucky with entry 7068. And reserve Division III champion goes to Cottage Hill Farms of Petersburg, West Virginia with entry 1503.
Back here on the Simmental side as we start the female show today. I think we've got a really good class of heifer calves, March and April heifers. I think the young lady's red heifer excels the class. I love this one in terms of overall density. As you study this from the side, she gives you a really good look, really fresh in terms of her condition. I really like the way this one's put together in terms of her underline. She's really full from the forerib to her flank, opens up in a nice curvature through the center portion of her rib. And then we put this one in motion. That's where she kind of excels this class. She's a little more flexible off of both ends, got just a little more added reach off of both ends as relative to the heifer in second. The young lady's heifer in second, I like this one. Big growthy heifer that's really stout in terms of her foot and bone work, long level topped, really level out of her hooks to her pins. A female, as we put her in motion, she's wanting to fight it just a little bit as we move her around the ring today, but she wants to open up a little bit on those hind two as we put her in motion. It's not quite as smooth and athletic as the class winner. Two really good heifer calves to start out this particular division.
Results from Class 5 junior heifer calves in the Simmental Show. First Kentucky goes to Grayson Ruber of Georgetown, Kentucky. Second Kentucky goes to Destiny Adams of Broadhead, Kentucky. We are now moving into Class 6 junior heifer calves, and just another reminder to those Simmental exhibitors, if you would make your way to the makeup ring, we have rather small classes this morning, so the show's pace is probably going to be a little quicker than usual. So if you'd just be a little more punctual up here at the makeup ring.
Over on the Hereford, good solid kind of a calf to win this class. One that is super eye appealing, super dead level down his top, level in his hip, got some muscle shape and dimension to him, really moderate in his makeup, moderate in his kind, and I think you do appreciate that about him. Maybe you just like to make him ever so slightly a little more flexible off that front end, make him reach out a little bit more out of that shoulder and knee just to see, just place it down just a little bit softer. Really nice calf.
Results from Class 17 in the Hereford Show Spring Yearling Bulls. First Kentucky goes to Caitlin Keith of Campbellsville, Kentucky, with entry number 4470.
Got a single entry here in the February heifer calf division of our class, I should say, of this Simmental show. But we've got a really high quality individual the young man brought for us today. Big growthy type heifer. Has got a lot of maternal characteristics about her. Really soft in terms of her center third. Really good at the ground as we put her in motion. Really square from end to end. Just a high quality female for this young man. Be anxious to see her when we get back out here division here shortly. Congratulations.
Results from Class 6 Junior Heifer Calves in the Simmental Show. First Kentucky goes to Tyler Lundy of Springfield, Kentucky, with entry 4519. We're now showing for Junior Heifer Calf Champion.
Well, as we get our heifer calves back here for this first division, their semi-show, we didn't have a lot of numbers, but we sure have got a lot of quality out here. The young lady's heifer out of the first class, the red heifer out here, as we talked in class. I really like this one. Really, it's got a lot of style and balance when you study her from the side. Really good at the ground when we put her in motion. It's got a really nice rib shape to her for that young of an age. Young man's heifer out of the second class, we just described this one. Big growthy type heifer. It's really good looking, really sound at the ground. Maybe want to just maybe give this one a little bit more angulation in her shoulder, maybe just to make her neck set just a little higher up out of the top side of her shoulder. But that's a really good heifer. I think there's one I'm really comfortable with for your champion. I'm going to take another look at her for reserve. Let's congratulate the young lady with the red heifer. She'll be our champion heifer today.
Two really nice bulls over here, and I am pleased with the quality of bulls that we've had. To be no more numbers than what there are. Bull that I'm going to use to win this class, I think, is a little bit softer middle, softer made kind of a calf that's probably got a little bit better sweep to the center portion of his rib. Moreover, I think that he's probably the more ideal in his scrotum shape and his testicular size than the calf that we've got in second. Calf in second, ultra long bodied, ultra good looking kind of a calf that one to me just gets a little bit more restricted in the center portion of his body. Certainly like to see that a little bit more develop in terms of scrotal size.
Results from your Junior Heifer Calf division in the Simmental Show. Champion goes to Grayson Ruber of Georgetown, Kentucky, with entry 1786, and your reserve goes to Destiny Adams from Broadhead, Kentucky, with entry 2820. We are now showing Class 10 late senior heifer calves.
Only two bulls out here in this division, but I think they're both high-quality individuals, and both of them have their own unique pieces and parts. Calf to my far right out of the first class, probably a little bit more eye-appealing calf, a little bit one that's a little bit longer front end, more extended about that front end, a little bit neater in his shoulder than the calf that we have in second. Calf in second's probably a little bit, or out of the second class, probably a little bit softer middle, bigger made kind of a calf. Calf that one gets just a little bit plainer up through his front end. For me today, I'm going to go with the young ladies calf division and come back with the older bull calf for reserve.
Results from the Hereford Bull show your division champion goes to Caitlin Keith from Campbellsville, Kentucky with entry 4470, and reserve goes to Ryan Underwood from Campbellsville, Kentucky with entry 4817. We're now showing for grand champion Hereford Bull. As we wrap up the Hereford show this morning, we just want to take another chance to thank our judge, Mr. Jason Heath from Piedmont, Oklahoma, for being out here to judge our cattle this morning. If we could show our appreciation to him.
As we get into these fall heifers, I think this is an awesome class of two. These two could handle a lot of competition as far as depth and quality between these two. I think there's some give and takes in these two, but I think the one we're going to land with, our class winner, I really like this one when the young man gets this one stopped and parked. I think she's a little bit more elevated in terms of her front third, how her neck ties up out of the top side of her shoulder. She opens up with just a little bit more depth of body as compared to the young lady's heifer in second. I really like this one in terms of her angles at the ground. Gives you an awesome look from the side, really square pinned female. It's got a lot of punch when you get behind her. That's not to take anything away from this young lady's heifer. I really like this one. This one's really good in terms of her overall build. Maybe just not quite as sleek in terms of her chest floor as the one above her. Maybe not quite as opened up in terms of her underline, but this one's really good. Square built, got a lot of product in this one. She gets around the ring exceptionally well. I'd just like to maybe just get this one, just have a little bit more pizzazz, and maybe opened up just a nickel more compared to the class winner. Two very high quality females in that fall drive. Congratulations.
Results from Class 10 in the Simmental Show late senior heifer calves. First in First Kentucky goes to Brady Applegate of Flemingsburg, Kentucky with entry 4338. And second Kentucky goes to Kendall and Portwood from Versailles, Kentucky with entry 6187. We're now showing Class 11 early senior heifer calves.
Well, as we round out our Hereford show, once again, I want to thank the Kentucky Hereford Association for asking me to do this. And like I said earlier, you know, I've been doing this for a while, so anytime I have the opportunity to go judge anywhere, love to do it. Love to have the opportunity, love to give my opinion. I'm kind of an opinionated person, so I don't have a problem with that. So I really enjoy doing this, and super good set of cattle, super good set of people. It's always good whenever you get to come home and judge at the state fair where that you made so many memories as a child. I'd like to thank my son for coming out here, Cody, and helping me. He gets roped into this a lot. He's helped me in the ring at, I guess, Fort Worth and Houston, and about every major show that I've ever judged. Him or his sister once have been out there and helped me. So always makes you feel good whenever you see your kids out here being involved. So Let's give all these bull exhibitors and Hereford exhibitors as a whole a big round of applause. Awesome set of cattle. I'm not going to go through and talk them all, and like I said earlier, I don't have a poker face. There's one out here that really trips my trigger, and I think he could go be big time good. I think that he could be bull stud good. And if I ever had the opportunity to buy part of him, I'd probably try to buy part of him. So I think this guy's really good. I'm going to go out and pick your champion and come back and study him again for reserve.
Last call for Alexis Wright. Your class of early senior heifer calves is in the ring. This is last call for Alexis Wright, entry 7143. And congratulations to your Grand Champion Hereford Bull and also Kentucky Grand Champion Hereford Bull, Stephen Green from Hodgenville, Kentucky, entry 7068, Green 228G, Profit 028LET. And congratulations to your reserve champion Hereford Bull at the Kentucky State Fair, Cottage Hill Farm, from Petersburg, West Virginia, entry 1503, CHF Man in the Mirror 3205 ET. Thank you for joining us for our Hereford show this morning, and that completes it for today. Premier exhibitor and premier breeder for this year's 2024 Open Hereford Show at the Kentucky State Fair goes to Mr. Levi Womack from Pembroke, Kentucky. So let's congratulate him as well.